Morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your day with us. We're going to start this morning in Washington with the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Senators broke a 6-week stalemate last night, voting to pass a bill with limited bipartisan support that would reopen the government and keep much of it funded through at least January 30th.
8 Democrats broke with their party, joining nearly all Republicans to get to that 60-vote threshold needed to pass the bill. That's even though the bill does not include action on their key demand, which was an extension of those expiring Obamacare tax credits. Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune celebrated the deal on the Senate floor last night after the final vote.
This has been a very long road, quite literally the longest shutdown in history. I am very, very happy to be able to say that we are coming to the end.
The bill now heads to the House. Representatives have been ordered to make their way back to the Capitol and prepare to hold a vote for the first time since September 19th. And with the nation's airports still facing major delays connected to the shutdown, well, they're expected to start voting as soon as tomorrow. That means this bill could be on President Trump's desk by the end of the week. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake is standing by with reaction from the Trump administration. First, let's get to our Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin for the latest on the bill and what appears to be the end of the shutdown. Julie, good morning. This was essentially the same bill Republicans presented Democrats with weeks ago. We know there were some amendments voted on last night. In the end, what does this final bill look like? Did Democrats get anything they wanted?
Well, that's the key question this morning, especially as progressives push back on those moderates that you showed on your screen, 8 of them, who joined almost all Republicans, but Senator Rand Paul, who usually never votes for these government funding bills, to ultimately pass this in the end in the Senate. You see what it does there on your screen. Notably, you see nothing about ACA in this bill. Instead, there was a handshake agreement to give Democrats a vote on any bill to extend those expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies, any bill of their choosing, by the second week of December. That doesn't mean it's going to pass, and Speaker Johnson actually was non-committal yesterday when we pressed him on whether he would put it on the floor in the House side. Even if it did pass in the Senate, this bill would also crucially fund SNAP, the food benefit program that has been in limbo for 42 million Americans through next September. It also funds 2 other agencies for the entire year, but otherwise it funds the government, keeps the lights on only through January, and then we'll be right back in this fight before you know it.
Not looking forward to that. I'm sure you're not either. Julie, the House has been told to get back to Washington to vote on this. Getting anywhere is tough right now, though. It's not easy because of this shutdown. How do we think that's going to go with them trying to fly back to Washington? And what is the appetite like for this bill among House Democrats?
Yeah, I probably envision some road trips in their future because the flights are going to be chaotic. Getting 435 members back anywhere is not easy, let alone in such a short time period. It's why House leaders kind of previewed this vote yesterday morning, telling them to get back in 36 hours instead of 48. This vote could happen as soon as tomorrow at around 4 p.m. is when leadership is eyeing to do it. They're going to pass the rule, which is the procedural step, sometime today. But it's still an open question whether Speaker Johnson can muscle this through. Back in September, when the House passed a continuing resolution to fund the government, it barely squeezed through. All Democrats but one voted against it. This time around, it is Senate Democrats kind of trying to point the finger at House Democrats, especially those progressives who didn't want this fight to end, telling them to hold firm, hold strong. We know Hakeem Jeffries in the House is in a different position than Leader Schumer, who, of course, didn't vote for this bill but is still being criticized for it. And so this is going to be an uphill battle, a heavy lift for Speaker Johnson. He can only lose 2 votes, almost guaranteed to lose Thomas Massie of Kentucky already. Marjorie Taylor Greene unhappy about those expiring ACA subsidies. So it's going to come down to the wire.
It's worth noting, Julie, none of the 8 Democrats who voted for this funding bill is up for re-election in 2026, so they're not going to face voters anytime soon. But what about the rest of the Democrats? How are they handling some of the pointed questions from journalists asking if Democrats caved here?
Yeah, well, so those 8 moderates, and by the way, I should note that the lead negotiator is actually retiring, Jeanne Shaheen, so she's not going to have to worry about any of this. But she was the author of the bill 5 years ago to extend these subsidies to this year. And so this was really important for her healthcare fight, absolutely. But it is those progressives that are pointing the finger. They're unhappy, perhaps, with how Leader Schumer handled this. He wasn't able to keep his party together, though no calls to oust him just yet from the Senate. But certainly House progressives are frustrated and are pointing the finger. I want you to take a listen to a little bit of what we heard from Senator Bernie Sanders, who certainly did not want to give up the fight.
That vote last night paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off Medicaid. What are they going to do? It is really problematic that 8 out of 37 people in the Democratic caucus, that 8 people made that decision. And we need leadership which says that, you know what, it's going to be made by 37 people, not 8 people.
So to be very clear, Democrats got no new assurances on the Affordable Care Act. Leader Thune has been telling them all this time for the last 41 days that the government's been shut down. Give them a vote on those subsidies. He can't guarantee the outcome. That is the exact place we find ourselves in today. In 2026, Americans who are on the Affordable Care Act will see their premiums spike unless Congress can do something to fix it. Leader Thune saying there is bipartisan interest in getting that done, though.
And we're hearing stories from several people who are saying they're not going to be able to afford their insurance now moving forward in this new year. Julie Sirkin, appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much.
Let's now bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett. Hey, Garrett, good morning. So let's start there. As far as we know, does the president intend to sign this bill if it lands on his desk? What is he saying about it?
It looks that way, Savannah. The president spoke favorably of the bill. He said, as it has been described to him yesterday, he was not fully committal on signing a bill that is not a finished product. To Julie's point, we have to see what, if anything, the House does with this if they're able to pass it. The president did speak favorably about it, though, and suggests he will abide by the terms in there, particularly about restoring people who lost their jobs during the shutdown, which I think is a key point of concern among some Democrats.
Let's turn to the chaos at the airports, which has not gone away. President Trump has doubled down on his criticism of air traffic controllers who have not reported to work during the government shutdown. Those workers required to work, even though they're not getting paid because they're classified as essential government workers. He was on Fox News last night, was asked about those workers. So what are we learning? And if the bill does cross the finish line, any sense if and when they might get things back to normal for air travel?
Yeah, Joe, I think there was some cable news-fueled grievance here from the president reflected back at a cable news audience last night. We know it'll take some time, both for this bill to get passed and signed by the president, and then for the air traffic control system to ramp all the way back up to full speed after they've been throttling things down over the last couple of days. The president continuing to vent that frustration last night. I'll share what he said and the problems with his policy proposal here after you listen.
We have a lot of people want the job. But I was not happy when I saw all these people, we have to... Look, life is not so easy for anybody. Our country's never done better. We should not have had people leaving their jobs. And what I basically did is say the ones that stayed, of which there were a lot of them, I'm sending them a $10,000 bonus.
Where's that money coming from?
I don't know. I'll get it from someplace. I always get the money from someplace regardless. It doesn't matter.
So 2 problems with that statement, guys. The first is the idea that everybody wants those air traffic control jobs. Air traffic control has been operating at a shortage for years. They cannot hire enough qualified people to do those jobs, which makes these shortages so acute. The second is fairly obvious. The president's, a lack of concern about where he would get the money to offer those $10,000 bonuses. There is not a presidential HR slush fund available to throw bonuses around the federal government. Coming up with that cash, especially with the government lurching back on, if you will, in the coming days, I think will be much more difficult than he seems to suggest in that interview.
Garrett, one more topic we want to cover with you. Ghislaine Maxwell's alleged efforts now to seek a commutation of her 20-year sentence from President Trump. Our viewers probably remember she's the co-conspirator of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This is according to a whistleblower who came forward to House Democrats. What do we know about this? Are we hearing from Maxwell's attorney at all?
Yeah, look, none of this should really be all that surprising. Maxwell had pursued an appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, which rejected her entreaties to try to get out of prison. She's obviously been moved to this lower security prison in Texas recently after cooperating with the Trump administration's efforts to interview her about Epstein's case. We learned from this whistleblower who spoke with Democrats on the House Oversight Committee that she's in the process of preparing a commutation ask, essentially, for the Trump administration. The president has been non-committal on this when he's been asked in the past, but given the spate of politically charged pardons he's done in recent weeks, I think it's something we should watch closely.
Garrett, while we have you, we should note today is November 11th, Veterans Day. Our thanks to all the veterans out there who served our country. President Trump is going to head to Arlington National Cemetery to commemorate the day. What more should we know about that?
Yeah, I'll echo that. Thanks. This is a fairly traditional stop for the president today. He'll be at Arlington to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, give some remarks there today. It is the only thing on his public calendar this Veterans Day, Joe.
Federal government may soon be opening back up, which means the legal fight over SNAP benefits could soon be nearing its conclusion. The food aid program has been surrounded by a flurry of legal action after the shutdown impacted its distribution for weeks.
Lower courts have ruled that the government must keep these funds flowing to beneficiaries, but the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court Monday to keep them frozen for now as the shutdown continues.
NBC News senior Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley joins us now with more. Lawrence, good morning. Good to have you. So the House is set to vote on legislation on Wednesday that would fully fund SNAP. But for now, this is still going forward. What is the Trump administration's argument for withholding the benefits, and what happens if the government does reopen?
Yeah, so it's all pending at the Supreme Court right now. The Trump administration is asking the court to allow them to not kind of delve into a separate pot of money, if you like, to fund SNAP, because they say a lower court judge has no authority to order the president to do that. That's despite the fact that the current administration likes to sort of move money around quite a lot, as you heard just earlier when President Trump said he was going to offer this money to air traffic controllers, and he was asked where it's going to come from. So, the court, though, may not have to rule on this now, because if the government opens up again, and you also heard earlier that the SNAP program is going to be fully funded, so there might not be any need for the court to rule, because, the case basically becomes moot. So today there might be some court action. The court might have to extend a kind of temporary pause on the lower court ruling, but it may a definitive decision one way or the other.
Lawrence, in other news, the Supreme Court, the justices turned away that long-shot attempt to try and overturn the 2015 Obergefell ruling on same-sex marriage Monday. Who brought this case? Was there legitimate concern that this was a threat to that landmark LGBTQ+ case?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of talk about this case. I think it was always kind of a long shot. And it was brought by this county clerk in Kentucky called Kim Davis, who, was in the headlines right after the Obergefell ruling in 2015, when she refused to issue same-sex couples' marriage licenses. And she ended up getting into trouble over that and ended up filing a lawsuit claiming, she was sued herself by a same-sex couple, and this case has kind of gone on for almost a decade, where she's been trying to fight off this lawsuit. And so she kind of appealed that ruling where she lost below in lower courts, but kind of added in this question of also the court might want to overturn Obergefell entirely, which is not really the issue in her case at all, because it was more about her being accused of violating the civil rights of the gay couple. So it never seemed like the court was likely to take this up, and it didn't. And there was no comment from the court. There were no dissents. No one saying we should take this up. So, it was all kind of a fuss over nothing.
Lawrence, also yesterday, the Supreme Court agreed to waive over mail-in ballots. What's the issue here? What's it mean for the future of elections?
Well, this is a big elections case. Obviously, if the court rules quickly, it could be done in time for the midterms next year. It's an issue about whether states can count ballots that arrive after Election Day, like mail-in ballots that arrive after Election Day, as long as they're postmarked before or on Election Day. This is an issue that's come up quite a bit. President Trump obviously has been very critical of mail-in ballots and the idea that, somehow there's something nefarious about votes being counted after Election Day. A lot of states have these laws that allow the votes to be counted after Election Day, including various Republican states, including Mississippi, which is the case, the state in this case. So this case has huge repercussions, although it may be, a long shot for some of the Republicans who are hoping the court's going to pull this back.
All right, Lawrence, thank you very much.
NBC News has exclusive reporting this morning about an Army gynecologist who's accused of secretly recording his patients during intimate exams. One of his patients filed a lawsuit that alleges the doctor's misconduct goes back years. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Cubey spoke with the woman behind the lawsuit.
When Jane Doe first met Army doctor Blaine McGraw, she says she was hopeful he'd be able to help her with her pelvic pain and hormone irregularities.
I remember leaving my appointment excited that I had a doctor that finally listened to me.
She had several appointments with him spanning a year. But a few weeks ago, she got a call from Army criminal investigators.
They said, we're going to show you a picture from a video that was taken. Can you please identify this person? Let me know how you know them. And it was a picture of myself.
She says they told her Dr. McGraw had secretly recorded her recent breast and pelvic exams. She believes he slipped his phone into his pocket to film her.
When was the moment that it sort of hit you what had actually happened here to you?
Probably about 5 minutes later when I got in my car and I was by myself. And I just sat there and I just started crying. And I drove home for an hour and I just cried the entire way home.
NBC News is not identifying Jane to protect her privacy. She filed a lawsuit against McGraw, alleging she is one of dozens of patients he preyed upon. The lawsuit alleges the Army gave cover to a predator in uniform by allowing him to keep seeing patients despite sexual misconduct claims dating back years, including unchaperoned exams, inappropriate comments, and unnecessary touching.
An Army official says the hospital here has sent notification letters to more than 1,000 of Dr. McGraw's patients. And while that doesn't necessarily mean they were victims, a military official says Army investigators have already interviewed at least 25 women who they suspect being recorded by Dr. McGraw.
Andrew Kobos is Jane Doe's lawyer.
How many potential victims have reached out to you?
We've fielded well over 60 victim phone calls.
In a statement, Dr. McGraw's attorney says he has been fully cooperative and says there's been inaccurate information from government sources. The Army says he was immediately suspended and is under criminal investigation. Jane's husband, who's served more than 2 decades in uniform, says his whole family has been betrayed.
I mean, it's a brother or sister in arms, right? Never in my mind would I have thought a medical provider, especially an OBGYN, would take advantage of both the position as well as the profession.
What do you want to say to Army leadership right now who may have known about this?
Shame on you. Shame on you for letting this happen. Shame on you for not taking action. Shame on you for letting this predator continue to practice.
Courtney Kuby, NBC News, Fort Hood, Texas.
Well, this morning, millions of us are waking up and dealing with an early blast of winter weather that's making its way across the country. The storm system dumped nearly a foot of snow in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin, which caused dangerous driving conditions. Like in Chicago, look at this. This car became engulfed in flames after it slid off the highway. There were more than 100 weather-related accidents reported throughout the region yesterday. And it wasn't just the Midwest. The Arctic blast sent temperatures plummeting in the deep south. Parts of Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia are all getting a first dusting of snow, and that is where we find NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist. He's in Atlanta. He joins us with the latest. Ooh, I see that beanie. You're bundled. Aaron, how is it this morning?
Listen, we're doing the little shimmy, trying to stay warm standing out here, right? It's just something we were not ready for here in the South Savannah, this cold air that's drifted into this area. We knew that it was starting to look a lot like Christmas. Feel like it here where we are in Atlanta, too. We have our trusty thermometer here that we've been referring to all morning. We're at about 27, 28 degrees right now here in Atlanta. The wind chill is closer to 22 degrees here. It's colder here in Atlanta than it is there in New York right now. We can tell you, though, that this is not the only area that's been dealing with this Arctic blast, this little chip off the polar vortex that's dipped down into the United States. We talked about the Midwest where they've seen those lake effect snows. There are some places in the Midwest that have gotten upwards of a foot of snow with this winter blast that's coming through. You talk about some of the accidents that we've been seeing as a result of snowy, icy conditions in some places. We know in Indiana there were some major accidents on some treacherous roadways there, upwards of 100 accidents, 18 people hurt in some of those collisions in that area. And then this whole wintry blast drifted south and east. We know we've seen snow, obviously, in Tennessee. We've seen snow in North Carolina. Even here in Atlanta yesterday afternoon, we had a few flurries come down in this area. The cold air, the snow also hitting areas in western New York. Not quite as cold in New York City, as we said, as it is here right now. The reality for a lot of folks here is trying to figure out how to deal with this cold so early in the season. We stopped by the Atlanta Zoo yesterday, and we saw that they actually have some of the goats there wearing these little coats, and they're bespoke coats, actually. They have them tailor-made for the goats that have to wear them just to try to keep the animals warm this time of year. And so everybody's trying to make the adjustments as they can, Savannah, to deal with the weather. The silver lining here, or the flannel lining, if you will, is that the temperatures are going to make a turnaround. We'll start to see things warming up a little bit this afternoon, and by Friday, we expect to be back above 70 degrees in this area, Savannah.
I like how you called them bespoke coats. It's like you made that as fancy as you could. I love it. Aaron, stay warm. Thank you.
With that in mind, let's talk about the flannel lining, because you might want to grab your winter jacket before heading out this morning.
And let's get the latest on these record low temperatures across the South with meteorologist Rafael Miranda. Rafael, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, Joe. Yeah, we're going to continue the animal theme right now. We have the goats and coats. Now we're talking about falling iguanas. And this is a real thing. When you get the cold extending all the way down to the deep south into Florida, the iguanas can fall from the trees. So this is a real watch in effect because temperatures are going to be in the 40s and 30s this morning from Tampa down to Miami. So something we're watching there. Yeah, this is a polar plunge all the way to the Gulf Coast. Right now, many dozens of records in jeopardy. These are low temperature records, places like Tallahassee, 29 degrees, Orlando, 37. You've already broken the record for the coldest morning on this date. And you can see the chill lingers into the afternoon as well. Temperatures trending about 20 degrees below average in places like Savannah. Out west, though, the heat starts to build, and then this whole pattern starts to moderate as we head towards the next several days. So into the weekend, yes, feeling much better in places like Virginia and also down towards Charlotte, back into the 70s over the next several days. It's the coldest morning for millions across the Northeast. The hats, gloves, and scarves needed from New York City, where we've been flirting with freezing. We had some flurries here in the Big Apple. Of course, this is our first time this season so far. From Boston all the way down towards Raleigh, a very chilly morning. And you can see the lake effect snow. That'll continue for the next couple of days with this cold air riding over the warm lakes. Travel could be tricky. Watch out for some rain mixing in as well. Slick travel conditions upstate New York. Several inches of additional lake effect snow a possibility as we head through tomorrow. And we are looking at all of this to impact the Northeast today. Definitely want to bundle up. Also, we have a storm out west bringing some rain and snow to the Pacific Northwest and California as well. So very active, very wintry feel out there today.
It's fun to see the pictures of snow around the country. I'm a little jealous.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.